What up, everybody? And, of course, thank you for joining another episode of the Church League Champ Podcast. Your boy, Kelvin Washington. And follow me online, KW Live. Appreciate you guys. And, as always, spread the word if you would be so kind. Hey, want to say what's up and shout out everybody who is listening from across the world. Yes, I said across the world. Your boys international out here. We're doing it, people. Of course, we have people in the States and Mexico and North America. But we have people listening in Nigeria. We have people checking out the podcast in Brazil, Costa Rica, I've already said Mexico, Sweden, Norway, Germany, UK, Ireland, Spain, Greece, and Nigeria, United Arab Emirates, India, South Korea, Japan, Australia, all over, man. So I just want to say hello and to all my people abroad. Make sure you let me know where you're listening from and maybe some things that you want to hear more of, you want to hear less of. I know you guys want to hear more of the podcast more frequently, and I am working on that to get with you guys more throughout the week. But hit me up, man, KW Live. I'd love to talk to you and see where you're at and why you're across seas or maybe where you're from and what's going on in your country. So KW Live on Twitter, KDUBBLIVE, and also Instagram as well, man. Shoot me a DM, shoot me a tweet, shoot me an Instagram, comment on a post. I'd love to hear from you guys all around the world. And even you here in the States, what you guys want to hear more of, less of, I'm open to that. So hit me up. Joining in a little bit, going to have someone that I'm cool with who is an NBA cheerleader who's going to help me kind of understand what's going on in the world of cheerleading, world of dance. You've heard the New Orleans Saints, one of their former dancers is suing them for discrimination for being a female that she believes being a cheerleader. Interesting story because it's one of those things like, really? That's what we're firing people over? Really? In 2018? But when you can say you're grabbing people by the certain areas, you can become the president? Really? So she's going to help me break that down in just a little bit. But, of course, we got to start with the national championship, which is over now and kind of moved on, of course, as we wind down the NBA season. But I want to talk about my experience the last couple of weeks and how much fun I've had being a Michigan Wolverine fan. This episode of the Church League Champ Podcast is brought to you by Misfit Activewear. As always, check out Misfit Activewear on Instagram at Misfit Activewear. That's two S's, MISSFIT, Activewear, all one word. And then shopmisfit.com. If you're an Amazon person, we're there. If you're on Etsy, we're there. If you're Overstock, we're there as well. Check us out. We have everything you ladies need. You're talking about yoga pants, sports bras, jackets, tanks, tees, bags, yoga mats as well. And also, if you're a gentleman listening, one of my fellas, what's up? Take care of your lady. Women love activewear. It's leisure wear now. They run errands in it. They go to the mall. They hang out with the girls. They all wear it. So take care of your lady. Shopmisfit.com. You're supporting them. You're supporting me. It's a family-owned company. My family, we're running this thing. So I appreciate you guys checking us out. All right, let's talk about it. Yes, it pains me a bit to talk about it. But I'll just do a quick wrap-up on the college basketball season. Villanova Wildcats, talk about Jalen Brunson now, who is the Wooden Award winner for the best college basketball player on the men's side, of course. They beat Michigan 79-62, but I just want to give a quick wrap, man, on my couple of weeks of fun and a blast, how much of a blast I had being a Wolverine fan, man. So it started, of course, if you follow me on Instagram, you saw it. Shout out to my boy Vic, man. Ended up hanging out, having a great time. You're talking about when Michigan makes it to the Sweet 16 and they take on Texas A&M. What a blast that was. One of the better games offensively, defensively. They were doing everything, man. And I'm not going to lie, I had great seats. And it was so much fun to be there. Michigan had to have consumed probably 98% of Staples Center. So it was such a blast to see those guys ball out. Then, boom, make it to the Elite Eight. Same building, Staples Center. I'm there. Even better seats. I'm not going to lie, man. That was the best seats I've ever had in my life in any game. We had such a blast outside of being like on the sideline for a couple of college football games. But, man, it was such a great time and a great atmosphere. And you realize why March Madness is what it is, man. They are beating up on Florida State. All of a sudden they come back and they make it a great game. They win by 2. We're cheerleading. I'm seeing them cut down the nets. They got the Gatorade bath on Beeline. It was just Man, I had so much fun, man. And so I just wanted to give a big shout out to Michigan. And they go on, of course, to the national championship game. They play Villanova, which people are like, oh, man, sorry your team lost. But the fact of the matter is, man, something, you're mad, you're pissed, you lose. But when you lose to a better team, at the end of the day, you're like, man, we lost to a better team. And going into the game, Villanova was a big favorite. I think Vegas had them up at 8. I had a friend of mine. She was all excited. She's from the area as well, Michigan. And she was, go blue. She went to Michigan. She's an alum. And I told her, I said, look, heart, yes, want them to win. Head, they can't keep up with Villanova. Villanova's too talented. Villanova has too many pros, and Villanova should win. But I'm going to be rooting. And the game started off. Had a brother excited. Mo Wagner was playing the game of his life, balling out. Rockman was coming around as well. But I've watched sports long enough to know it's a lot of time on this clock. And eventually Villanova did what Villanova was going to do, and they won. Got to give credit to DiVincenzo, who played the game of his life. And you talk about playing the game of your life at the right time, that's the right time to do it. Whether he comes back or not, the fact of the matter is everybody's going to be watching him now. Definitely made his name hotter, and he balled out. I mean, you could really say he single-handedly beat Michigan himself. Anytime they make a run to get back in the game, get down 10, and you think they're going to be able to make some type of run, hit a 3, dunked on him. He blocked Matthews' shot, his dunk attempt, blocked that with 2 hands. I mean, the kid played a spectacular game. So tip of the hat to him, tip of the hat to Villanova. Got to show some love to them. But I just want to say, heck of a season of my Wolverines, and they'll forever and always be go blue. All right, let's start with the NBA. Most teams have anywhere from 2 to 4 games left. And I want to start with what's going on in the Eastern Conference. Now that you've heard the news, of course, Kyrie Irving is not going to be playing the remainder of the regular season. And, of course, he is out for the season, including the playoffs, with that knee injury, which is interesting because if you recall, part of his kind of the negotiations with Cleveland to get out of there was saying that, hey, I'm going to not have the surgery. And he was kind of using that, his health against the Cavaliers to force a trade. And now here he is, having missed quite a few games this season, and then now going to be out the rest of the season. So what we lost with that injury, though, and we're kind of losing with some injuries around the league, but staying within the Eastern Conference, we lose the potential for the drama, of course, of a Kyrie-led Celtic team facing a LeBron-led Cavalier team in the Eastern Conference Finals, which is, what we were all kind of looking forward to. We lost the potential with that, where Kyrie, I think, was relishing that opportunity. And you got to give credit to Brad Stevens, their head coach, because you look at this team, they lose Gordon Hayward, you think they're going to go down. They keep Kyrie. He's in and out of the lineup. They still ball. They still play well. And they got a lot of young guys that they depend on, whether it be, of course, Tatum, whether it be Marcus Smart, who's still relatively young. You got Rozier and, of course, Jaylen Brown. They have all these guys that they depend on. But now the injury bug with Smart being out, Kyrie being out as well. So people ask me on Twitter, they say, well, what do I expect from the Celtics now? I said, I expect them to still compete. I don't think this team is going to lay down. I don't think this team is going to give up. I think they've got a bunch of young guys who expect to play well. When I look at Jason Tatum, I don't look at a young guy who's just happy to be here. I look at a young guy who says, this is what I've been doing since I was in, 5th grade. And I expect to play well, and I don't mind the pressure at times. I look at Jaylen Brown, and you see how confident he is, sometimes maybe even overly confident. So they've got enough veterans around to keep them in some games. So I'm telling you, and they're well coached. That's going to be a scary team to play. Yes, they're Kyrie-less, but you're going to have to really bring it in order to knock them out. People are like, oh, they're going to get swept. They're going to lose in 5. I don't think that's the case, if you're asking me. Obviously, if you look at the standings right now, they'd be potentially, and again, this could change within the next day or so, but they would be potentially playing the Milwaukee Bucks. And the Milwaukee Bucks, to some extent, have maybe you could even say underachieved. I mean, right now they're sitting at 42-37. We expected much more from them. So I don't think the Bucks can just easily beat that Boston team. Not at all. If they do, it's going to be at least a 6-game series. You heard it first. This is an opportunity for the Bucks to beat the Celtics if they can, if they want to show that they're a better team, if they want to show that they're the team that everybody keeps expecting the last couple of seasons them to be, and they haven't. And I know Jabari Parker was out for majority of the season, but he's back, and they've made the trade, and they got Eric Bledsoe, and you fired Jason Kidd, so you better show me something. They better, if they not only better beat Boston, they better beat them handedly and move on to the next round, because this Milwaukee team is starting to become a team that every year you go, all right, this should be their year, and they don't really do that much to impress us. With that being said, though, going back to the Cleveland Cavaliers and what they've been able to do the last couple of games, or specifically LeBron, this has been a very, very unique season for them. This will be an interesting chance for LeBron to break a streak of making it, of course, to the finals and, of course, the Eastern Conference Finals. But one of the things he's done doing so, and that includes with Cleveland and that includes also with Miami, is he's been the number 1 or the number 2 seed. And it looks like right now they're number 4 seed. I mean, it'd have to be them. They're not going to get to the number 2 seed. We know that. But Philadelphia 76ers, who at this point, as I'm making the podcast, are on a 13-game winning streak, they would have to kind of lose out, and the Cavs would have to win out in order to jump to the 3 seed. But my point still is that they're not going to be a number 1 or a 2 seed. So it'll be interesting to see if LeBron is able to get to the Eastern Conference Finals and win, and then get to the finals when being a 3rd or 4th seed, because he has not done that in the last 8 years. But what we've seen from him has been ridiculous, averaging a triple-double over the last month or so. You're talking about what he did. If you saw the game against Washington where the Cavs were up by double digits, then all of a sudden they're down as many as 17 points, and then LeBron goes nuts and gets them back in the game, and they end up winning the game, beating the Wizards. And this was the return of John Wall, who balled out, had 29 points. Then on a back-to-back, they go into Philadelphia, get down by 30, come all the way back with LeBron having a chance to tie the game. But then here comes Lex Luthor with a big old ton of kryptonite that always hurts Superman, in this case LeBron, and that is the free throw line. That has been LeBron's Achilles heel forever. I know one of the things he said, he's done pretty much everything you can do in the league, which he has. I mean, at this point, he's finals MVP, multiple finals winner, all the stuff that he's done and accomplished. He said he wants to shoot at least 80% from the free throw line, and I don't know if his best chance to do that is when he's like 39 years old, because maybe he'll only shoot 2 a game, and he'll have a better chance of doing it than as opposed to right now shooting so many free throws. But that hurt him again, cost him again. And that's the one thing that when he has the ball in his hand and he gets fouled, the other team's fouling because they want the Cavs to go to the free throw line. We all, as great as he is, we all get nervous. I'm sure Cavalier fans, as much as they love him, let's be honest, they get nervous. I'm sure his coaching staff, as much as they love him, let's be honest, they get nervous. And most importantly, he looks nervous. And that's just the one thing. But when you think about it, there has to be something, right? Like when God was creating all of us, he had to have said, LeBron, look at here, man. I'm going to have you shooting the 70s from the free throw line. I know you want 80, 85, 88, but the fact of the matter is I can't give you that, because at that point, it's not humanly possible to stop you. I mean, they have statistics now that's saying if he scored 4 more points, and, those would be, say he made those 4 free throws a game, he'd already be past Dirk and past a couple other cats when it comes to the all-time scoring list already. And he'd be shooting at, you're talking about the Kareems and the Kobes. So God couldn't make the man do everything. He's already one of the greatest passers. I mean, he's averaging 9 assists this year. He's already one of the better rounders at that position of all time. He's averaging 9 rebounds a game. And the greatest asset of LeBron is the fact that it's a passing ability, yet he's still one of the greatest scorers and could end up being the greatest scorer of all time. But that free throw line is his kryptonite, and everybody has it. Shaq, as dominant as he was, I mean, we all know the free throw line. You want to talk about a guy like Dirk? What if Dirk had more athleticism? How unstoppable would he be? Kevin Durant, what if he was a bit stronger? Not that he needs it, but, that could only elevate and help his game if he was a force coming to the rack like, say, a LeBron. Kobe Bryant, what was his Achilles heels that for quite some time was his passing. I think he got much better. I think he, really relied on his teammates a bit more with those championship runs with Pau Gasol and Lamar and Bynum and those guys. But Kobe Bryant, I mean, that was his Achilles heel for years. He admits it. He has said that because of the way he grew up in Italy. He grew up isolated. He grew up alone. And because he was a black kid and didn't know he was the American and he didn't know Italian that well and nobody would play ball with him and they kind of treated him differently, that he went into, Kobe Bryant, the dark place, and he channeled the darkness of being alone and having to do it on his own. And I'll prove it to you that he said that carried with him into the NBA. And so many times, that's why you see him double, triple team, and he'd still take the shot out. He'd make it a lot of times. That's Kobe. But oftentimes he'd miss it and have teammates wide open. He said it's because he used to go into that mental space of, I have to do it. I have to get it done. I have to prove it to them. So my point is, that was his Achilles heel for quite some time when he was young in the NBA. So everybody has it. But that's LeBron's. And I'm telling you, it's almost thank God that he has it, because at that point, there would be no question. If he was shooting 90% from the free throw line and could ice out games, he'd be the greatest of all time right now, easily. Well, take out easily. You get my point. Which does lead to Jordan. I thought about this, and I really couldn't think of Jordan's flaw. I mean, you could say passing similarly to Kobe, but I think Jordan was a very adequate and efficient passer for who he was during his time. So, I mean, the only issue that you could say with his game was that he needed to get stronger in the late 80s, maybe early 90s, and he took care of that. He hit the weights, shut the Pistons out. The Pistons didn't do anything for another decade because of that. Got stronger, got a post-up game, and after that it was a wrap. Run off six championships, why don't you, MJ? But the way LeBron has been playing lately, even in that game against the 76ers, 41, 11, and 11. I mean, that looks like what he did in the finals a couple of years ago. I mean, he's been playing out of his mind. And the other thing that LeBron has been doing is dunking on everybody. See, I figured out what's happened. Because he's 33 years old, 15th year in the league, everybody is saying he's an old man. And maybe there's a lot of young guys in the league who are saying, okay, he doesn't have the springs. He ain't got the bunnies like he used to. And everybody's jumping with LeBron. And that's been great for us, the fans of the game, because we get to see him dunk on people. Because guys are testing him now. When that freight train was coming through the lane from, say, 2004-05 to probably 2010, 2011, nobody was jumping. Nobody was jumping with him. We knew what was going to happen, so everybody was like, I ain't messing with that. Maybe you can say 2000, even up to about 13. But now everybody's testing him. He's an old man. He doesn't have any hair. And guys are jumping, and guys are getting posterized, and I love it. So now that leads to the MVP race in the NBA. And it seems to be a foregone conclusion that James Harden is going to win the MVP. And I understand it. He's leading the league in scoring. He's third in assists right now behind LeBron. He's first in scoring. I mean, the guy's playing out of his mind. But it is interesting because LeBron is definitely making a case. LeBron's numbers are right there with him. If everybody wants to go simply by the winning stat of a team games, well then yes, James Harden has it. The Rockets, going to be the number one seed in the West, number one seed overall. Then that will be the case. But it is very interesting when you look at all the other numbers and metrics and and efficiency, it's still LeBron. So I'll be interested to see as we wind down these next couple of games to see what voters are going to be looking at. You know what's been kind of fun this season is the fact that we actually have had a couple of NBA rookies that have been entertaining, that we've had a rookie class that has been fun to watch. We haven't really had a lot of that over the last few seasons, and we have it this year. And now I don't know what to do with Ben Simmons because he was in that 2016 class, but then he doesn't play. But then obviously, so he's eligible to be a rookie this year. So I'm only going by the NBA rules, and the NBA rules are that he is a rookie this year. Of course, we saw that some years ago with Blake Griffin, so he's probably going to be your rookie of the year. But, man, you look at Donovan Mitchell and what he's able to do in Utah, and when you watch him, you get that feel you got when you watch Damian Lillard. Like, okay, this kid wasn't extremely heralded coming out of college. You heard his name and you saw him a bit, but man, can he play. And he has something special written over him when you get a chance to watch him play. So you got Donovan Mitchell. You got, again, I'm going Ben Simmons because, I mean, this is his technically rookie class. You got sneaky guys like Kyle Kuzma, who wasn't supposed to be this good, and he looks like he's going to be a player of this league. I think you got even guys like Dennis Smith Jr., who, again, is playing on a terrible Dallas Mavericks team, but when you actually get a chance to watch him play, like, wow, this kid can play. This kid has some go. And you wonder what he's going to be like in a couple of seasons. And I know I said Kyle Kuzma on the Lakers, and that's really a compliment to this class that Lonzo Ball, who we all was the biggest name coming in this draft. And obviously he's been in and out of the lineups with injuries, but even when he's played, hasn't been spectacular, but he's played well. He's played fine, and you know that he's going to be a pretty good player in this league. So that's a compliment, because some classes, the last 4 or 5 years, he would have been the rookie of the year. And again, he hasn't played that spectacularly. So it's a credit to this rookie class that, shoot, man, you got some guys you actually want to watch. And I didn't even mention Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum may be the most polished player of this draft. I mean, maybe Donovan Mitchell as well. And don't forget guys like Lauri Markkanen, the big man from the Bulls over there. I mean, he's averaging almost, 15 points a game. And he's somebody we don't talk about again because he's on a bad team. But you got him. You got De'Aaron Fox. And we didn't even talk about the number 1 draft pick, which was Markelle Fultz, who's now finally coming back. And the opportunities that you get to see him play, you're like, okay, I can see the talent. And I think he's going to be good as well. So this draft class, man, shout out to this draft class for being entertaining and being one of the better draft classes that we've had in quite some time. On to the world of combat sports. And, of course, excited about some fights you got coming up, at least in boxing. You thought you were going to have a Cinco de Mayo fight, Triple G, Canelo Alvarez, get the rematch, and then that's not the case. Canelo has withdrawn from the fight against Triple G because of PEDs, and he says he didn't know. His team says that they believe it's from contaminated meat in Mexico, which other NFL players have claimed as well. What I find interesting about this is, though, that a former senator, Harry Reid, who was he was the chairman of the Nevada Gaming Commission and had a lot of notoriety when it comes to the boxing world. He had something to say recently this week. He talked about it. He said Mayweather always felt Canelo was on something. He said Mayweather decided to go ahead and fight because he thought he would lose money if he made a big spectacle about it, and maybe that he was right and then they had to push the fight, and he didn't want to affect his money. But he said Mayweather always told him he thought that Canelo was juicing even back then. So now here we are 4 or 5 years later, and this information comes out, and now we're blaming it on bad meat. What's interesting, though, to me is, and maybe it's what's kind of bad for boxing. Well, this in and of itself is clearly bad for boxing. But what I thought was interesting, I thought I'd hear more of an outrage, whether it be an outrage that he would use PEDs or an outrage that people will be disappointed that they're going to lose out on what should be another great fight. Because the first one was, I believe Triple G won, and I believe it was 8-4 if you really watched it. Maybe if you said 7-5, okay, I'm cool with that. But the fact of the matter is we're missing out on this fight. Now, the suspension should be about a year, but once he meets with the commission on April 18th, it's probably going to get dropped down to a 6-month suspension, so then therefore these guys can fight again in September. But this was a great opportunity for boxing to have another great fight and continue to make some noise. And, continue to maybe either distance themselves or continue to draw back in their fan base from the UFC. Well, the UFC have some issues as well now. Connor McGregor going on Connor McGregor and attacking people and throwing stuff at a bus at the Barclays Center. And he's released again on $50,000 bail. So this is a very interesting situation because everybody sees it. Dana White was on TV the other day, and he was saying how they were just having negotiations and trying to figure out a way to get Conor to fight again in the UFC. The last fight he had was in November 2016 because, of course, he ended up fighting Mayweather, but whatever you want to call that, a real fight. Mayweather carried him, which I believe he did, and allowed Conor to look like he was actually doing something until he decided to go ahead and knock him out. So now we put in position of what is Conor doing? Does he want to fight in the UFC? If he wants to be a part of it, this was a terrible way to do so because now Dana White is saying that he really can't see him fighting. Now, come on, I'm not dumb. He's only 29 years old, and we know that money talks, and he obviously would still be the biggest draw in the UFC. But one thing I will give credit to the UFC is the UFC, and this is coming from an outsider who peeks in occasionally, they find a way to keep going. Okay, Ronda Rousey's a star. She started getting kicked all over the place and getting knocked out. Boom, we move on, and they continue to push. Bones Jones, that's one of our biggest stars. Oh, he can't stay off drugs. Boom, okay, we move on. And they continue to have great fights. They continue to have fights once, twice a month, it seems, big fights. And that's one of the things boxing doesn't have. I mean, you get some good fights on occasion in boxing when you didn't know unexpectedly, but you don't get big fights often, as much as you would like, at least. And that's one of the things the UFC has continued to do, is feed their fan base. Connor McGregor, we love you. You're our biggest star. You acting crazy? All right, we don't need you. We'll move on. Do they want him? I'm sure that would help. But after this stunt, again, Dana White saying that he's not sure that he can see Connor McGregor being in the UFC again. Now, whether this was over Connor McGregor jumping in to help his boy who was got smacked up at the press conference, and so he wants to go and avenge his boy. One of the things I found interesting also about this was the fact that this is on a bus with a bunch of UFC fighters. And this is one guy. Of course, he has some people with him. But ain't everybody on this bus a fighter? Let's get after it then. If you're calling me out to the point where you're throwing stuff through the window, I'm going to get off this bus and I'm going to get at you. I'm going to get at you right now, Conor McGregor. But of course, that's not the case. And now people are saying, but was this a setup? Was this something for publicity stunt? I'm going to tell you what I'm not going to do. As a black man in America, what I'm not going to do is participate in a publicity stunt that has me go to court. Because one thing we have seen throughout the history of time in America with black men, the courts aren't necessarily great to us. So if you couldn't come to Kelvin Washington, the fighter, and say, hey, man, let's do this publicity stunt where you do this. And, yeah, you might actually injure some people when you shatter glass in their eyes, as Connor did, so much so that they can't even fight. But, yeah, it'll be fun. We'll draw a crowd, people will be interested, and then we'll go to court, and it'll be nothing. It'll be $50,000, and maybe you'll get probation. We'll take care of it. I would go in thinking that and walk out with 5 years in the state penitentiary. So one thing I'm not going to do is do a publicity stunt that involves me having to face a judge in the American court system. But to be specific, Connor was charged with 3 counts of misdemeanor assault and 1 count of felony criminal mischief. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. And I really want to know what's going on with him right now. Is he going to be a boxer? Is he going to try to get back in the UFC? Is he going to be a movie star? I think 2 of the 3 may still be available to him. Somebody would fight him just in boxing. They would box him simply because it would be a draw and it would make some money and people would do it. And boxing at times can be a circus as well. And obviously, if he wants to hop in the next Expendables 42, he could do that. But it's seeming as if Connor's going to have to figure out who Connor is and what Connor wants to do moving forward. Connor's going to have to make a decision on what he wants to become for the next 10 years of his life. Because he doesn't want to become just a sideshow that gets in trouble all the time and is in and out of jail. He doesn't want that. Because he's actually made a name for himself. He's actually a really good fighter. And again, I'm not a UFC aficionado, but when I watch him fight, I'm like, this guy can really fight. This guy really can box as far as in the octagon. He is really, really talented. He's great defensively. And you see that whenever you get an opportunity to watch him fight. So you don't want him to squander that away. But obviously, he has baggage from his past, and he has that same kind of tough guy attitude from his past that he's carrying with him today. And you hope this doesn't destruct him, become self-destructive in the point where we don't ever see him do anything positive again. An example of that would be when I watch it. I know there's 2 totally different worlds, but Chris Brown. When I watch Chris Brown and all of his antics, you know how talented he is from singing, from dancing, from even acting, and you see him keep making foolish decisions, you feel bad. And I hope this isn't where we're going to see Conor McGregor start to go down this road. So I'm happy to be joined now by someone that I know and is an NBA cheerleader, has been for a few years, and can definitely help maybe shed some light on the experience of being a professional cheerleader. Of course, recent news has been Bailey Davis, who is a 22-year-old who's been a cheerleader with the Saints. I think they're called the Saints Station or something. That's the name of the cheerleading team. But she's had a lot to say. She's actually filed a suit against the Saints for discrimination against a female. They have denied it. We'll see where this goes. But I'm happy to have you on to kind of enlighten us, because it seems like every couple of years we have a story like this. I remember the young lady who was with the Raiders, had issues of being terminated. There's been other stories as well. Okay, so you start out of high school. Is that common? Is it, are most girls that young? Is it something where I went to, I went to college and danced at a university, or is it a variety of ages?
Typically the team ranges from 18 to 21. They usually like to keep the girls a little bit young and fresh, unless you can kind of keep up with the tempo and keep bettering yourself. But it is common for people to look forward to 18 to audition.
Oh,
So it
okay.
wasn't really out of the norm, but the chances of making it are really slim.
So what is a young woman who is in high school and like yourself? Okay, I'm getting ready to graduate. What's the goal with the dancing, the cheerleading? Like, what is that? Is it an end goal? Is this the years of taking dance classes and this is the height of it? Is it a stepping stone? Kind of what's the goal?
This is technically considered the highest profession that you can go into dancing if you're not a solo dancer. Like in LA doing commercials or gigs, like this is the sport professional level of dancers.
So if this is that, which you have a lot of girls who would love to be doing what you're doing and what this young lady did with the Saints. Let me ask you this then: why is it that so many girls have done it for so many years when we find out that they're making minimum wage or close to it? They're not making a lot of money. They're not. Some cases maybe not even being paid at all. Heck, how is this considered professional when that is what's going on?
Well, I don't think that they get everything or that we get everything that we should, but I think that the one thing that keeps you coming back is kind of perks. You get to travel, free gear. You do get some of the clout that your team gets. But that's a good question. I think it just like comes down to passion. People do the things they love and they do them and start at the bottom until they get to the top. But unfortunately for NBA, NFL dancers or dancers in general, that's not a high paying career.
Now that leads to a conversation. Let's be honest. So, all of you are beautiful women. You're young, as you mentioned, and a lot of people will listen to this or listen to her case, and they'll say you're in it to meet one of the players, whether it be on that team or another team. I mean, so would you say, in your experience, that is true? That's false narrative, or maybe in some cases it is true.
I would say like it's with like every type of person. You throw a person into a situation and there's going to be those girls that do that. It's not an untrue statement, but it is very true. It's very untrue to say all 20, 21, or 34, if you're a bigger team, girls are going to partake in that kind of behavior. I myself danced for 8 years, and I bound to my contract the entire time. I truly think it just comes down to the type of person that you are. In
So,
general, I think those same girls that break that contract would break any contract.
well, okay. I'm glad you mentioned the contract. Let's kind of talk about that for a minute. This Bailey Davis was saying, being a Saints, there's so many rules that the girls are expected to abide by. I mean, you're talking about they can't. For instance, if you're out hanging out with your girls at a club and a Saint player walks into that club and you were already there, it's expected of the cheerleaders to leave the club, which I think is ridiculous. They talk about
Yeah.
how they're not allowed to use any affiliation with the Saints, although they're part of the game and they make people, enjoy the game and everyone's looking at them. But they can't say I'm a Saints cheerleader on any of their. For instance, no one can book them as a Saints cheerleader. They can't have it on their Instagram. If a player double taps one of their pictures and likes it, it's the responsibility of that cheerleader to then block that player. So, have you heard of all these rules? And maybe since you've been in the NBA, is there a difference between the NBA and the NFL?
I've heard of all those rules, but many of the craziest rules I've ever heard of are particular to the NFL. Like the NFL is the best way I like to explain it is your NBA girls are your like tomboys, like the girls that are like one of the guys, and then the NFL is totally like a beauty pageant almost. It's always what things look like instead of what they really are.
Mm.
So we do have some of those rules. I mean, in the NBA and NFL, they totally control your image. I can tell you. If your skin's too oily, if your hair's too short, if you don't like the color of your hair, they want you to lose weight, gain weight in places. They have total control over who you are as a person, and there's a lot of social rules because of what things look like on social media. I'm sure a double tap could look bad, but those particular rules do not or have not pertained to any NBA team that I've been a part of.
So why do you think
that sounds way NFL?
Yeah, that's super NFL, right? That seems very NFL
Yeah.
to be doing. And is there ever any? I mean, do you? And again, it's just your experience, or maybe even some friends, but where you feel like they use who they are to their advantage, like do almost in a forceful way, like, hey, you better holler at me, hook up with me, because I'm superstar player, and otherwise, I can get you fired.
Yeah, actually, I had a run-in with a player on a team, and he actually was following me on all social outlets. He was really close to the mascot, and when we would go out and they would be in the same clubs, we didn't have to leave. He would send over friends or mascots, or like all players do, water boys. They even bring their own scouts to scout women in the audience.
Wait. We got to start there. First off, we got to back up. And you just told me he's really good friends with the mascot. How do you become friends with the mascot, and why is the mascot popular? I need all the answers there.
Well, the mascot isn't bound by the same contract as the rest of entertainment.
How do they even know who he is or she is? Like, they're always in a costume.
Oh, everyone in the arena knows who their mascot is. Just the rest of the world doesn't.
Oh, okay. I just didn't think the players cared that much to be like, oh, that's my man, the mascot over there. Like, I didn't know. Oh, but continue. Okay, you were saying they send scouts too. And by the way, what are these scouts? Who are they typically, and what do they typically say?
Maybe any kind of scout. It could be people that traveled with players. It could be, sometimes it's even coaches. I've been approached by people sent by coaches to talk to coaches. It could be literally anyone, and they look at these women in the audience. We've all seen them dressed ridiculous at a basketball game, and they send them to invite them to booths, or if they're staying in town, to party or their hotel room, and they're like constantly looking to meet women.
So what did you say when this has either happened or happens?
Well, what happened is he continuously had someone coming to me, and I started to feel like it would be somewhat of an issue because I kept denying the request. So I went to HR and just gave them a heads up. I'm screenshotting the follow request, like, he's sending me all these things. I just want you to know that I haven't been a part of it, just in case it gets serious. He took it as far as to tell my teammates and people around me that, like, we had hooked up, or we had kissed, or we had been together. And it's very awkward because my friend ended up dating him, and I had never told anyone this besides, like, HR and, like, people around me. I felt like it was important to. And it was never even brought up, even after I stopped dancing, that he had done that to me. And, they're young. A lot of players are, 18, 19. Rejection's not good when you're rich. I'm sure it's an ego crusher. And I'm just assuming that that's what the situation was. But that was the only personal experience I had where I felt like, oh, I'm going to lose my job if I don't talk to you. Like, that's what you're going to do? But luckily, I was ahead of the game, so.
Right, you protected yourself. I want to go back to the New Orleans Saints cheerleader, former, who one of the things that got her fired was that she posted on her Instagram a picture of herself in a sexy onesie, which I haven't seen it. I don't even know if it's out there or not. But now, how hypocritical is that when we've seen what you all danced? And we've seen, especially in the NFL, we see what they're wearing. And so the idea that because on her own private Instagram page she posted a sexy picture, that's an issue. But yet y'all have her walking around in sexy outfits. How hypocritical is that?
It's so hypocritical. One time I had to actually even literally take the stand for one of my teammates because she had a stalker. And their lawyer, the first thing they went for was, oh, what about your image? And, what about what you're putting out there? Like, it's no secret these women were picked to, they're amazing dancers, but they appeal to a male audience. They sell sex. So to, say it's okay if it's on our page, but not on your page, I think that's ridiculous. That's, insane. That's one of the grounds that they fired her on. I could see if she was drinking large amounts of alcohol or had, a red cup or something that's bad for the organization, but she wasn't stepping outside of it. image they created for her.
Do you ever feel as though, like, have you or been in an instance where you said, I'm not going to either do that or wear that? Like, maybe it was a dance move, maybe it was an outfit where you're like, okay, this is too far, this is too much. And then also, how have over the years your families been receptive to what you do? Maybe they liked it, maybe they didn't like it, or maybe even boyfriends as well.
I've never seen an outfit on a team that I've been on that I was like, absolutely not, because I don't think it could get any more risque. I mean, at 18, I was just talking about this with a friend of mine. We look back, like, we're on a calendar in a swimsuit at 18. Where was everyone? Like, what were we doing? This is crazy. Like, so exploited, but not in a way that we weren't in agreement with. It's just crazy to think I was 18 in the swimsuit calendar. Like, now that I know 18-year-olds and I'm 27 now.
So what did mom say? So why you're 18 and you're walking around in a bathing suit. What did mom say?
Well, see, like I said, it's the highest, like, professional level technically that you can get into with an organization. I mean, everyone's happy for you. That's a good thing. I mean, grandparents are a little iffy on the photos, but I mean, you're dancing and the outfits are risque, but it's like, just with any situation that gives you clout, it's like, oh, but that's their job. Oh, but that's what they do. So it was super excused in my own family. But I do know that every girl, and this is not even a lie, every girl that I have met that has come onto the team with a boyfriend has lost that boyfriend in that season. And it's just insane. It's always like hypothetical, like, oh, what if a player talks to you, or what if, like, the situations weren't super secure. So I know for a fact, like, boyfriends are a huge thing when it comes to dancing if they're not super secure.
Well, I could imagine. I mean, that would be difficult to be sitting there thinking that, all right, I got this beautiful girl, that's my girlfriend, and, I think especially if you think about it, you said you were 18, so let's say your boyfriend could be anywhere from 17 to 23, and
right.
All of a sudden, millionaire player X, who's handsome, he's got money, he's got commercials and all that, and he's like, hey, baby, you want to go out and hang out? Like, how can I compete with that? So, he pulled up in the Maybach, so I can imagine that these guys, even like you said, it didn't happen, but in their mind, this is happening every day. Like
exactly.
Like,
when really there's no contact at all.
Yeah, but like if that were me, and the first time, like, Damian Lillard, like, nods at you and gives you, like, hey, what's up, girl? I'm like, oh, see, no, it's over. I'm breaking up. It's done. We're done. Because now in my mind, you're talking to Damian Lillard. What's going on? Why did he give you a head nod?
Exactly.
Well, all right. So I appreciate you joining and kind of shedding some light on this. Is there anything else that I missed that you wanted to say, or anything you want to add? Is there how much longer? What about the age maximum? You said you're 27 now. Is that considered old, or you need to retire? Is that perfectly fine in your prime? What is that? How does that work in that world?
The oldest woman I've ever danced with was 34. I think it's just how long your body allows it and how well you age, really, because 27, I don't know. I mean, I am on the older end, I would think. I mean, going in at 18, most girls average 3 years. So 8 years later, yeah, I know a girl that danced for 12 years. So I guess it just depends on if you can keep up. But there's not like a retirement age or like a limit.
You said she danced for 12 years. We just talked about how you all aren't paid what you should or what you would like. So how does she do that for 12 years? What does she do? Do you guys have side hustles? Is it side jobs?
Yeah. Most all of us are students or have other jobs. It's strictly passion. It's just doing what you love to do, which is why it's so sucky that you could lose your passion all because someone felt like they were in a position that was higher than you to do something that didn't work for you. That's why it's so sucky. Because if it was true that every girl joined and got to be with an NBA player, then wouldn't we see them all? Like, that just doesn't happen.
That doesn't happen. So I need but that doesn't mean that it does not happen. We know that it does. So give me some stories. Tell me a girl who had the ultimate come up. I need to know. I don't need to know her name. But
we did have a girl, and she was before me, but she's like a legend, technically, because it's insane. She actually ended up coming clean about a player because she got pregnant, and they continued to be together and had a second child, and she comes to the game still with both of the babies, and it's just wild. I've known of instances where I was the captain on my team, so I've had to like come up with secret ways to figure out where people are because I had heard things, and like asking the team to turn their location on because they had been spotted in Florida, or like really weird. It happens, like it totally happens, and it always comes out later, and I don't hear about it till after the fact because girls are really good at hiding it. I mean, it's really just word of mouth. They can't technically fire you, as far as my contracts were concerned, unless they had proof, like physical proof that you were somewhere you weren't supposed to be with someone you weren't supposed to be with. So it's super easy to get away with. That's why it comes with what kind of person are you? Do you love dancing, or do you love attention, or do you love? You're gonna get that in any job. You're gonna get people that break the rules or steal,
well, that's true.
But it just looks bad when it's a married athlete, obviously.
Man, you said she came to the game with both of the kids, and
both kids.
And man, that's just all. First of all, the fact that a mistake can happen, but to happen again and walking around with a couple kids, I mean, I think now you got me. I'm about to like go into the lore of NBA players and figure out who this is on my own time. Now you know that I'm just sitting here and figure this thing out.
You should. You're gonna be like, how did I not guess that?
Yeah, I'm gonna figure this out. I hope it's not one of my guys that I really like. I hope not. But
no, I doubt it.
I you know what? I appreciate you taking time out and again illuminating this your career and kind of what it takes and what you guys go through. So I appreciate it, and hopefully you'll have another 7 years or so you can go longer than the girl that you knew that did 12.
Okay.
You know I'm the truth. All of the hundreds is blue. You know I'm the truth. The hundreds is blue. You know I'm the truth. My pockets is blue. My pockets is blue. You know I'm the truth. All of the hundreds is blue. Woke up, I felt like the truth. As soon as I tied up my shoe, then I walked right through the door.